get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys. I'm going to bring him up here in just a second. Just got one quick reminder. My team always likes me to say this at the front of the episode as well. If you get value in what you hear here today and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious after this one, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify as well, because if you saw it, chances are your network's going to see it as well. And then one more thing, our weekly newsletter dropped this morning, you guys. I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, though, to register for it. I do that because I don't auto-sign anybody up for it. If I have your email address, I'm not signing you up for my stuff. I want you to go in there and do that, because I get annoyed when people auto-sign me up for newsletters, especially if I've never talked to them. So it's just one of those things that I like that value exchange out there. So if you want to get it, it drops once a week. And of course, it's always about freight. I'm not your life coach. So with that being said, you guys, we are going to talk about something that I think affects a lot of brokers, shippers, and carriers alike, right? And it's those empty miles. It's that not filling up your trailer and really losing out on some potential revenue with that. And I got somebody here today who's been in the industry for a while. He's got something new going on. His new company is Private Fleet Net Zero. And I got Mr. Russ Jones on the show. So Russ, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on the show here, Chris. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely, man. And I'm looking forward to this, because it's like, when it comes to like what you're doing now, like it's to me, it's one of those things that you never think about until you hear about what you guys are building, and then it's a side of the industry that isn't out there all the time. I mean, everybody's always talking about this regulation in regards to, or the freight market, where are rates at and everything else. And I'm such a firm believer, Russ, the deeper I get into entrepreneurship, where it's just like, we got to focus on the nuts and bolts of our business, and we got to keep our P&L as steady as possible. And we got to uncover those cost savings in any way we can to, keep our business profitable. And, before we get into any of that stuff though, man, how'd you get your start in freight? Like, what brought you into the industry?
That's great. Well, thank you very much. I love entrepreneurship. I think, being a startup, things happen fast. It's real. And it's exciting. It's the thrilling way to have a career. So my very first startup was a company called Clearbox Communications that pioneered the market for headsets for mobile phones. We became the category winner, and we're shipping millions of units. And I sold that company, but along the way, I had a lot of trucking drama, as many shippers do. Mm-hmm. And then after doing a social give back startup called Sentinel Vision that pioneered the market for vision-based security systems for people in apartments, I started my third company, which was a tech-enabled freight brokerage called Cargo Chief. And it was based in Chicago. We had a huge office in the West Loop, and we grew super fast. Within a few years, we were tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And then in 2017, other brokers said, "Hey, Russ, I want to license your multi-patent award-winning tech." Well, I heard that for the sixth time. It reminded me of a distant relative that came to the California gold rush, not to be a gold miner, but to sell pickaxes and shovels to gold miners. I said, what would happen if you took 100 brokers and combined all their data together? You could do something really special for those brokers to help them buy more from their existing fleets and existing carriers, and have a better experience on the supply side. So we pivoted Cargo Chief, sold the brokerage, and today Cargo Chief does, I think, has like $8 billion of freight spend, 1,200 buyers on that platform, helping them buy for-hire trucking capacity. And then we did a pilot with Amazon's huge private fleet, and the pilot was successful. And I started doing some homework on private fleets. I was like, oh my gosh, private fleet trucks are 45% of all trucks. And after 100 conversations, I think they're empty something like 70 or 80% of their backhauls. And this is an incredible opportunity, probably the best opportunity in my career. And so I went to the Cargo Chief board and said, hey, I think this is a great opportunity. I think we should bet the farm on private fleet. The board said, we have existing customers. They're very happy. We really want to keep on the same path. I said, great, let me start up a new company. I'll give you a portion of the new company. And everyone agreed. So I started Private Fleet Net Zero about a year ago. And the first quarter, the Q3 of last year was spent defining the product. Then Q4, we started to build the MVP, the minimum viable product. Q1 of this year was doing the alpha test, working out the bugs to my satisfaction. Then last quarter, we started our beta test and started recruiting private fleets and dedicated fleets into the platform. It has enormous value and benefits for not only the private and dedicated fleets, but also the brokers that are and that are on our platform today.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I think has really risen over the last, I would say 4 years, is private fleets. There's a lot of large companies out there who have dealt with their own supply chain issues, and to me, COVID really pushed it to the forefront. And and that's why it's like, for me, I'm out here and I'm like, I hear people talking about a driver shortage and this. And I'm like, there's not a driver shortage at all for anybody who's actually operating in the industry. And, but there was a capacity crunch in COVID because there was such a bullwhip effect out there in the market where things stopped and then started essentially overnight. And freight was sitting on docks for companies. And a lot of my prospects in my brokerage, we specialize in open deck and heavy haul, right? So flat steps, Conestogas, that's our jam. That's where we stay. And that side of the industry, a lot of those guys did privatize their fleet out there at that time because they're like, listen, we had multi-million-dollar projects that were delayed by weeks because we couldn't find anybody to come pick up our freight. So we went out, bought our own trucks, and internalized that. And that's why we're not going to go out there. And then I also know a bunch of people on the food and beverage side of things that own large grocery retailers, regional grocery retailers, that same thing. They're all bringing their stuff, from their core distribution network out to the stores, and then they're deadheading their trucks back empty 500 to 700 miles because they don't want to risk not having their trucks back up to send them back for their product. But there's not enough consistent business that really aligns where it's like, hey, our guy's empty at 2 a.m. in Vegas. We want to get them loaded by 4 a.m. in Vegas to get back up to Utah, but and stuff like that. And it's like, there's a gap out there that a lot of fleets are faced with on the private side, and especially on the open market side as well. I think that there's depending on the freight market that's out there. I mean, you look at the state of Florida right now, for example. I see posts about this nonstop where there's drivers who are like, I would rather deadhead 800 miles empty than take your load for 40 cents a mile and stuff like that. So it's like, again, look at that. That's another one of those markets that there's a ton of empty trucks that are just probably deadheading out.
Yeah, Chris, you totally hit it right. You think about, let's pick on Sherwin-Williams, one of our private fleets. Well, first, during the pandemic, they couldn't buy any trucking capacity very easily. So they enlarged their fleet, or in your case, they made a fleet. And then now the pandemic's over and now people can travel. So there's less demand for stuff. And so now a lot of those private fleets are oversized. They have excess capacity and they're trying to do something with that. And they have one pressure to reduce costs. So by generating, coming onto our platform, it's free for the fleets to come on our platform. So they simply just tell us, hey, I'm running empty, typically from Jacksonville to Atlanta on a Friday. They can tell us that in an email pros coming into our AI bot. They could send us an email with a spreadsheet. They can upload a spreadsheet. They can enter that lane information into our platform. And then we know that Sherwin-Williams, where they want to pick up and when they want to deliver. And lots of details, appointments, pickup times, windows, what kind of equipment, do they have any special things? Do they have a lift gate? All these sort of special details. It's very complete. And then for the private fleet, so not only are they generating revenue literally for free, they're also a lot of the government is requiring companies report out on carbon, and they can say they're part of the private fleet net zero world. So they're decarbonizing things and being part of that. Forbes reports that the big trucks out there generate a quarter of the nation's greenhouse gases and over 57% of the deadly fine particulates. That's a lot of pollution. So anybody can help fill all these empty trucks. That's a big deal. And then on the buying side, for ABC Freight Brokerage, pretend they simply do nothing different. They enter into their TMS, hey, this coming Friday, I have a load leaving Jacksonville going to Atlanta, and we have all these different types of trucks. And that load comes to us via an integration, and then we use multi-patent pending technology and some AI to match that load to that lane, and we generate an offer to the fleet on behalf of the carrier, on behalf of the broker. And then when the carrier accepts or counters, then the broker can either work with that price or not, depend. And then we generate a matching email. So think of us as Match.com for private fleet capacity or dedicated fleet capacity. And there's a number of advantages for the buyer. The first benefit is you think about Sherwin-Williams fleet compared to that of a very small operator. Well, Sherwin-Williams is a $20 billion corporation. They're going to have a lot more maintenance, manuals, procedures, newer trucks, better paid drivers. Private fleets are a third less accidents than trucks in general. Sherwin-Williams isn't going to steal your customer's freight. So there's a lot of service benefits. And then in terms of hard dollar benefits for repetitive purchasing, Sherwin-Williams and other private fleets will take a 30% off market price for a spot situation, 10% off market price. This triples the margin, the net margin for a brokerage. That's huge for any brokerage. Our system also does digital freight matching. So the broker simply types into their TMS that they have a load from Jacksonville to Atlanta, and automatically we start bringing them carrier accepts and carrier offers for them to work with.
So is this something like this to me seems more of a volume based play where if I'm a broker, I might not want to put a customer who just say moves one full truckload a week out there. They're like, this is like repetitive business where, you brought up Jacksonville to Atlanta. I want that. Like if I have a customer that moves 5 full truckloads a day between Jacksonville and Atlanta, for example, this is where I'm going to want to put that out there. And, talking about those large private fleets, I mean, I've spoken to a few of them, not the ones that you're describing right here, but they're well-known companies that deliver a lot of packages. I'll say that. And they've came to me privately at events, Russ, and they're like, hey, how do we find, like, our assets are all over the place. We are repositioning them all the time. Like I can offer you not bare bottom prices, but like below market, because like we're not doing this to necessarily make a profit on the run like a traditional trucking company is. They're just not wanting to reposition their fleet back for nothing. They're trying to generate revenue on all turns, because ultimately they will deadhead back empty, right? Like just like the large private fleets, they will deadhead their stuff back empty if there's nothing out there, because they need to get it there. Because again, if their product's not on their shelves, they're not in business very long, right? So it's like these are those decisions that are made. So like I look at it as if I was a broker in the space of like, I got 20 loads a day between Charlotte and Chicago, this is where I would want to put it out there. And especially like you're bringing up like they're better maintained and everything else. And, I'm not here to argue whether, the engines need governors and stuff like that, but they run at specific speeds. They don't go above certain things. They follow that book. They're highly scrutinized, a lot of those private fleets, right? Because the last thing you want to see is one of those large logos doing something on the freeway. And I think that this is one of those opportunities where, again, as I could see how some of the small fleets and owner ops out there are going to be like, this is the cheap freight that keeps us out of that's going to put us out of business, that's out there. But I would almost argue that this is a sector of freight that most people never even see out there from that dedicated ones. Because like, even as a broker, I think a lot of brokers, they have these visions of grandeur, we'll call it, Russ, where I'm going to go in and haul for these large beverage companies that have all of this business, and that's who I'm going to target. but ultimately there's a lot of layers to get up there. And, your ability to source consistent capacity is the ultimate separator out there. And because again, I had somebody ask me this the other day. They're like, if you had a customer right now say, I got 15,000 annual shipments for you to move, what would you say? I told them, I'm like, honestly, we don't have the infrastructure to handle that freight in today's terms.
Yeah, Chris, you totally hit it right. Is that Sherwin-Williams really isn't looking for a one-off load. They really want to have a relationship with the buyer and do a lot of repetitive freight. My observation from working with hundreds of brokers is that they don't understand how often they buy repetitive. For example, let's talk about Chicago to Dallas. The broker might say, oh, I have customer A that buys Chicago to Dallas. They buy it 3 times a week. But what they're missing is that there's customers B, C, D, ZZ, AA. They're also buying Chicago to Dallas. So that broker isn't buying that lane 3 times a week. They're buying that lane 30 times a week. And our software will enable the broker to know how often they're buying a lane. And we present that as part of our information to the fleet. So Sherwin-Williams goes, well, look at this guy who orders this lane 50 times a year or 100 times a year. Oh, this is pretty interesting. I definitely want to pay attention. That's something that we help with, using artificial intelligence and some industry know-how as to what are the key things to really look at. One of the things I want to point out, Chris, is that we have a really neat tool called the RFP tool. So say a broker that's working on RFP. My dad was a lifer at Kimberly-Clark. So let's pretend ABC Brokerage does business with Kimberly-Clark. Kimberly-Clark sends off its RFP package to ABC Brokerage and say, hey, tell us what rates you want. ABC Brokerage, what they do is they just send us that spreadsheet. We then analyze line by line all those lanes, and we return back to ABC which lanes we have private fleet capacity on, how much capacity we have, how many fleets, how many trucks, and what we see as the market price and what we think they'll pay. And that's something that really helps out. Nearly every broker we show that to really likes that tool a lot.
Yeah, I think that the RFP and there's some tools out there that are really helping with that process. And for me, it's like I was just talking about this, and I'm drawing a blank on who it was with. So I apologize to the guest that I had on the show that we were discussing this about. But accurate, like using your data to your advantage, I think it's often an oversight by a lot of organizations, because I feel like most people operate in a reactionary mindset inside of freight, right? Because the majority of freight that a lot of brokers and people are moving is that spot market, last minute, find me a truck right now mentality. And it's like your data is very telling on how markets are performing, what you should be buying at and everything. Because I look at it as a lot of the published rates that are out there, Russ, they're at the end of the day, it's a benchmark, right? Like it's very subjective. I can look at some of these prices out here and I'm like, yeah, that works if it ships on this day or this day. But if this is a Friday to Monday, you're going to pay double that to move that based on the mileage and, what's the delivery time and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of factors that come along with it. But if you're looking at a dedicated pricing strategy out there through an RFP, all of those factors do not matter, because like you bid on, say you're going to get awarded 1,000 of those loads. It doesn't matter what day of the week, you're not getting any additional money for that. So it's a completely different pricing strategy. And that's why I think a lot of people, though, at the end of the day, you can take that RFP mindset and apply it into the air quote spot market from a pricing perspective, because at the end of the day, as a broker, I got to bring consistency to my customers. I got to, like they know, right? So it's like, if I'm going to move specific lanes for them going up into a region, I want to keep that rate the exact same as long as I possibly can. So I can essentially give them more of a straight line item of like, hey, if we're moving freight between New Mexico and Dallas, even if it's on the spot market, Chris gets us a better rate than our contracted rate and stuff like that. So I think it's all just that long-term strategy as you're going out there and trying to develop business.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think you picked on something, which is that what we're doing is really acting as an aggregator. So we've now are aggregating dozens of buyers with tens of billions of dollars of freight spend, aggregating that to dozens of fleets with thousands of lanes and tens of thousands of trucks. And so now that our group of buyers is bigger than any one individual buyer. And what happens in private fleet and dedicated fleet backhaul matching is you need precision. Sherwin-Williams is not going to wait 6 hours for you to pick up someone else's freight, and they're not going to drive hundreds of miles away out of their way to pick up someone else's freight. So it has to be in Jacksonville to Atlanta or the general area. And so we manage all of that. Our system enables the fleet to manage the matching radiuses for all lanes, head and destination, and the origin. So the precision matching is why the fleets really like working with us. And it also, because of our automation, it makes it easy for the buyer, whether it's a shipper or broker, to come in. They just simply do nothing different, and we generate them load offers. One of the things that we're doing that's really innovative is very sophisticated brokerages are matching van over-the-road loads into containers. Most truckloads don't cube out, they weigh out. So, for example, the Port of Chicago, we have a carrier on our platform today that has 5 or 10 trucks a day that leave the Port of Chicago with cargo, come to Indianapolis, and 90% of the trucks are returning back empty. We have another a carrier on our platform that leaves the Port of Oakland with 10 trucks, goes to Reno, where you used to live, and they return back on Highway 80 over the Sierras every day empty. And so we put that empty capacity in our platform, and we're enabling people with truckload capacity or truckload loads to say, hey, here's a container. It's a 45-foot high cube. It's got 24 pallet positions. Will that work for this load? They're willing to haul it at, a 15 to 30% discount. That's a big deal for most brokers.
No, I agree, and I think that's a big deal for a lot of shippers too, and especially when you're in that region, right? And to me, like when you're talking about stuff like this, Russ, it's got to be very regionally focused freight. Like if you're running Indianapolis to Chicago out there, it's a specific freight type that fits. And again, I look at it is you need to present any and all options to your customers to bring them the best capacity that's out there. And at the end of the day, the worst they can say is no, right? Like the worst they can say is like, no, we don't want to load a container on this. We want to load a 53-foot dry van. Right. But again, I feel like when you bring actual cost savings to the table, because again, everybody likes to throw that out, Russ. They're like, oh, but I can save you money. I can save you money. How? It's a lot different when you're like, hey, I can save you money if you're open to this shipping mode, right? Like we have drivers that we are utilizing that they have 45-foot high cube containers. You can drive a forklift in and out or however that looks. There's only 24 pallet spaces. They're usually deadheading back empty out there back into Oakland. Have you guys ever considered something like that? And again, It's all about that position, right? And I think that a lot of people assume everybody knows everything. And what I think a lot of brokers and transportation providers out there need to understand is people only know what they know. It's on you to educate them. Out of all the freight that I've moved in my career, Russ, the overwhelming majority of those companies have all said in one way or another, we're a manufacturer. We're not a transportation company. We don't know this because we expect you to know this and bring this to us. Right. So, and these are, some of these companies were like very large recognizable brands that people would be like, there's no way they don't know that. They don't, right? Never assume. And like these opportunities that you're describing right here, Russ, that is a very real opportunity that you could apply into most freight mixes.
That's right. We also have a number of retailers on our platform as private fleets. And it's very common for the retailer to head out full and they return back with just some extra pallets and some dunnage. That might only consume 2 or 4 out of the 26 pallet positions. The rest of the truck is empty and available. So we have that capacity on our platform as well. We also, it's surprising. And when we started Private Fleet Net Zero, I also had an impression that, most of the freight would be regionalized. Typical length of haul would be 1 to 500 miles. Mm-hmm. We have a number of, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 mile lanes from some of our private fleets. They're specialized. They're shipping specialized goods, and they're like, I need to get a truck from, the Arizona to Atlanta, and so we have long hauls as well on our platform as well. It's kind of a cool surprise that we've come across.
No, I like that, and so like with this, Russ, where does this go from here, right? Like I like this concept a lot. I think you're onto something here. I really do. I think like there's definitely a need for something like this in the market. Um, how does this like really expand out? Like, where do you see this growing into over the next 3 to 5 years?
I appreciate the question. So first, we have started to hire a team. One of our key teammates is Kyle Neschert, who's has a history of pioneering the private fleet platform at Coyote, did the same thing at Uber Freight, and the same thing at Emerge. I believe in a year's time, we'll have literally hundreds of fleets. We'll have maybe 50 to 100,000 lanes. We'll be matching the majority of freight coming in. And that creates a wonderful opportunity for buyers of truckload capacity to save substantially on their freight and to have a higher level of service. I mean, it's fantastic for the buyer. Sherwin-Williams isn't going to steal your freight. And then on the buying side, it's very easy to work with. We work with a lot of the key TMSs. We have our own API. We also write to other people's API. We're adding a lot of new functionality. One of the largest freight forwarders in the world, a $50 billion corporation, is starting to get involved with what we're doing. And that's just helping us spider and grow. McKinsey, who does a lot of work in logistics, says that our technology would be well received in many countries. So the U.S. is a huge country, so we have a lot of work to do, a great job here in our own backyard, but there are international possibilities.
No, I like it. And, I think that one of the, and you probably understand this more than most people when it comes down to founding multiple companies over, being a career entrepreneur, Russ, is, a death sentence to most organizations is this is the way we've always done things. And they're not willing to think outside of the box, excuse me. And, I look at it is you need to understand where things are going, not the way things are today. And I truly think that a lot of people look at where automation is in freight and they think it's a .com style like fad. And I look at it is there will be, I don't know when, I don't know how, but there will be $100+ million freight broker out there that has like maybe 5 people on staff because they are going to automate everything out there. And it's a tough one for people to comprehend. If they've never been in the enterprise level if they've never seen that there are shippers out there who literally move 100 truckloads a day from Dallas to Kansas City every single day, right? Like they can't comprehend that because they've never seen or even been privy to that level of freight. But there are, like, again, you brought up Sherwin-Williams a bunch. I could only imagine the amount of truckloads that they move in every single day in specific areas and regions out there.
It's a $20 billion corporation that deals with paint. You can imagine that transportation is a big part of their cost structure. So they're all about their private fleet. Some of the very largest brokers literally buying, billions and billions of dollars of truckload spend. They have whole departments focused on accelerating their usage of private fleet capacity. Mm-hmm. They want the great level of service. They also like the savings that will triple their net margins. I mean, that's a big deal for any broker.
No, 100%. Russ, thank you so much for your time today. How does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you guys have going on?
Thanks very much. So we have a website that tells a lot. It's www.privatefleetnz.com. There's a form there where if you want to reach into our sales department, you can just click for a demo. We would love to show you what we're working on and have a direct conversation with you. We're partnering with a lot of the key TMSs in the industry, as well as some of the major players in the industry. The growth is growing very quickly. It's really exciting. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show today. Thank you so much.
No, anytime, Russ. And if you guys can't find Russ or Private Fleet Net Zero out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling really ambitious after this one, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.